Welcome to Chills with Chas. We'll continue the Haunted Heartland series with the stories Lakey's Ghost and Buried Alive, the last two stories in the Ghost of Egypt section. Let's get started. An early settler in McLeansboro, Illinois, Mr. Lakey, had given his name to a small creek which meanders through that city. One spring he decided that he needed a more permanent abode, and he began construction on a cabin on the west side of Lakey's Creek, not far from the spot where a street now passes over the stream. In that long ago age, however, a ford passed through the water on the trail from Mount Vernon to Kearney. Lakey's house was soon completed, save for the clapboards he was fashioning from an oak tree that he had felled. On the evening before Lakey hoped to finish his work, several travelers reported seeing him near the site, busily completing the cabin. Early the next morning, however, Lakey's torso was found propped against a tree stump. His bloody, severed head lay a few feet away. Lakey's own board axe, now driven to the stump, had seemingly been used as the murder weapon. Who would want to kill Lakey? That question burned in the minds of the community as soon as the crime was discovered. As far as everyone could tell, Lakey had no known enemies. His reputation was that of a kindly, simple man, not known for extravagant ways, and he possessed no hidden wealth. Indeed, he was quite poor. Although the local authorities conducted a thorough investigation, no one ever discovered Lakey's murderer. Townspeople buried Lakey adjacent to his never-completed cabin, but the corpse did not remain at rest. On the night following the burial, two men were riding near Lakey's cabin on their way back from a trip to the Wabash River. They had nearly reached the creek when the horrible specter of a headless horseman mounted on a coal-black steed joined them. The ride spurred their horses to a gallop, but the ghost easily stayed a beast of the frightened men. As they all entered the stream, the phantom horseman turned downriver and disappeared into the mist below the crossing. The men eventually made it safely home, but they were reluctant to tell their story. However, a few nights later, two other men arrived from the east, also encountering the ghostly horseman as they crossed Lakey's Creek. The word quickly spread throughout the region that the ghost of Old Man Lakey would not stay in its grave, but while the ghost never communicated, it apparently never tried to harm any travelers. Always, however, it would appear immediately after sunset to ride approaching along the east side of the stream. The ghost was always mounted on a large black horse, which galloped along the left or downstream side of the unlucky witnesses, and the specter invulnerably disappeared halfway across the creek. The horrible figure was encountered off and on for decades, and lately its appearance has become infrequent. A concrete bridge now crosses Lakey's Creek, where the old ford used to be. Lakey's cabin has long since vanished. The legend of Lakey's ghost lives on in the minds of many of the residents of McLeansboro, Illinois. Alright, and now we'll go to the next story. Buried alive. Can you imagine the horror of being buried alive? Of waking up to find yourself encased in a solid wood box, buried beneath tons of tightly packed earth, and no hope of escape? Irene Mache of Belleville, Illinois, told folklorist Charles Neely the story of one such woman who was spared that ghostly fate in a bizarre twist of luck. The woman had been ill for several weeks. One morning her family found her dead, and after a cursory examination, the local doctor agreed. Modern embalming methods were unknown at that time, so after a brief wake, the woman was properly buried in the local cemetery. As it happened, grave robbers were at large in the southern Illinois region on the night of the funeral. The robbers stealthily entered the graveyard in search of any jewelry that might have been buried with the woman. They quickly uncovered the coffin and pried off the lid. The lady lay just as her family had readied her. But what attracted the attention of the robbers was her large ruby ring. They grabbed the woman's hand and pried at the beautiful jewel. Despite their best efforts, they could not dislodge the ring. In desperation, they decided to chop off her entire finger. As the knife slit the woman's bony flesh, the woman's arm trembled slightly. Suddenly, she sat straight up and opened her eyes. The grave robbers fled the cemetery, their feet barely touching the earth. The dead woman, who was quite alive, made her way home and told her startled family the tale. She said she had been aware of everything going on around her at the funeral and as she was buried, but was unable to speak or move. The pain of the knife cutting into her skin had caused her to recover her senses and to retain her cherished ring. Perhaps it is the association with the even mysterious Egypt of the pharaohs which makes the Little Egypt area of southern Illinois so susceptible to the occult. Or perhaps it is, as folklorist Richard Dawson said, the ghost tales carry such conviction in southern Illinois that it is taken at fact. However the case, that triangular square of land and its inhabitants possess a very haunting legacy. Alright, that's it for that. And thank you for listening, and we'll continue next time.